Welcome to Divine Downloads. I'm your host, Cassandra, and this is the show where we help you divinely design your life. And today's episode is all about becoming a medical intuitive and what a medical intuitive is, perhaps if you're even curious about seeing one yourself.
Amy Leigh Mercree, I'm so excited to have you back again. And we're talking about something that we've never really dove into before, which is how someone can become a medical intuitive. And you yourself are a medical intuitive. So I wanted to kick off with, can you tell us about how did that journey begin? Was it just like one day you realized you had these abilities? I'm so curious.
I'm so glad we get to talk about it because it's my life's work and a really meaningful part of it too. So when I was always an interesting kid, first of all. Like I had some learning disabilities and stuff like that. So I was always an imaginative kid and, able to tap into the spirit of nature and things like that. And then when I was 18, I was in college for education, and I was also working as a nanny. And I was nannying for this British family with 5 kids. Some of the kids were at school, some of the kids were napping, and they didn't have TV. Back then, it was called being crunchy or granola. Remember that when people would say that? So they were kind of crunchy, which was cool. Like I was already kind of aligned with that. But they didn't have a TV. And, you're 18, you're like, I'm not cleaning their house. What should I do while these babies are asleep? So in the library, there was this book by Lynn Andrews called Jaguar Woman. Lynn Andrews she recently passed. She's a prolific author, kind of like the female version of the Carlos Castaneda books. And Jaguar Woman was her third book, I believe. And it was about her and her medicine teachers who were from Canada going down to the Yucatan in Mexico and learning from a curandera, which was a medicine woman there. And so they were, I'm sure to make it a good story, it was, jazzed up, but they were essentially doing shamanic journeying. And I was reading it and just like totally enamored of it. And also, like, I kind of do that already. So then I looked up, what is this shamanism? And I found the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, which was founded by Michael Harner. And I went and took, and I'll actually tell kind of a interesting story that was a real cool proof point. So I lived in New England, so I went up to a different state, and my grandmother and I were close, so we went together because it was near my uncle, who's deceased now, was a wonderful guy, really a sweet guy. He also had mental illness, so he lived in a group home. So we went up, and my Grammy saw my uncle, and I went to the workshop. And so I learned, shamanic journeying, like a beginner version. And I had this journey with a deer that was, giving me guidance. So that night, we went to dinner with my uncle, who was schizophrenic. And like I said, real sweet guy, but, he had some stuff. And he was always like, ate his food real kind of, a little bit dramatically. So he's like kind of shoveling his food, and he goes, Amy, you've got to listen to that deer. That guy knows what he's talking about. And then he just kept eating. I mean, we didn't even tell him what I was doing because you just didn't necessarily get in. So he had no idea.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So it was kind of like, I was always someone who pondered essentially the nature of consciousness and subatomic particles and what things were made of. I was always very into chemistry and physics and stuff like that. So then the next day, it was a 2-day workshop. We did some partner work, and it came up in the journey that partner did for me that I needed to do some past life healing. And she said, the best person ever is in my town. Here's her name. Here's her phone number, Lori. So it turned out to be less than an hour from me, even though we were states away. And I went and did a session with her. And because I'd read the Lynn Andrews books, and by then I'd read all of them probably, because I've always been I've been a voracious reader my whole life. It said in one of the earlier books, Lynn goes and she wants to ask her teacher Agnes to be her teacher, but she knows in the tradition you have to give her a gift. So I went back for another session with Lori and I painted her a painting. And it was this like animal guardian silhouette. I used to paint these watercolor silhouettes of animals. I used to sell them. And I didn't like, I kind of intended it as a hawk, but it didn't have a face. It was like a speckled, it's pretty, but it looked like an owl too. So I gave it to her to ask her to be my teacher. And she said yes. And her name she went by was Laughing Owl. And she laughed. Because I told her that, and she said, "Darling," she would call you darling. Darling, you don't have to give me a gift. I love it. It hung in her office and everything. So it was really cute. And that's how I met my late medicine teacher. She passed in 2019. But she initiated me into an oral tradition that her teacher had initiated her in, and her teacher's teacher, and so on and so forth. So some of that was shamanic, some of that was based on a system of 7 grandmothers, which I do teach a course on as well. But that was a foundation. And so I worked a lot with Lori on healing, things myself. And then after 5 years as her apprentice, I started seeing clients myself. And so that's when my healing work started. And even then, what I did is, it's a version of what I still do, which is essentially talking to people's spirit guides. Now, over the years, I began to specialize more in the medical intuitive side. And I will say, I was incredibly fortunate to have a teacher steeped in a rich lineage and tradition, and to have her in my life for over 20 years too. I mean, many of us don't have that. Like when I was starting my practice and I did have things come up, I could call her or reach out to her and have some support, which was nice. And over the years, I did build a community of like-minded friends like yourself, and healers. So support. So when Lori passed, I had support, but having that support is really critical. So
So what's the
yeah.
wait, just before we continue on, because I
Yes,
feel
yes.
like what is the difference between, or like when you said you became like kind of more drawn to like the medical intuitive side of things, what is the difference between like someone, let's say, seeing a shaman or seeing an intuitive or seeing like a specifically medical intuitive? And what is that for you as someone that kind of has this like wide breadth of skills? Does it all kind of like commingle in your sessions, or there's like a specific kind of like container you put on when you're doing medical
That's a
intuitive
great
work?
question. It evolved for me. So it was sort of, and I'll answer that with the backstory and then the answer. Initially, it was everything. And because of my love of subatomic particles and cellular biology and things like that, that stuff would start to come up. And simultaneously I don't know if you just saw, that was lightning outside. It's a storm here. That I saw it in the reflection of it. So that would come up and things would come up in the body. And I was also simultaneously writing early drafts of I have an atomic element healing oracle deck coming out with Hay House in 2025. Some of the work that's in my Aura Alchemy book that recently came out, it's about the energetics of actual subatomic particles. some of this were these were things I was seeing actually before some of these smaller pieces of some of these particles were even discovered. I was looking at the way they interact in the body and how they may be the root cause of disease. So it evolved over those many years. Eventually, I started to call it medical intuitive work because it was not exclusively that, but less of the love, life, career, the usual suspects of questions, which I'm still happy to answer. And people mix it all together in their sessions with me too. But more of the things that were about the body and finding ancestral and karmic and more root causes started to come forward. And then I also started to channel what I now use as proprietary processes for my atomic healing method, which are things like protocols that the goddess Athena taught me to unravel curses in the genome, or different things that I specifically use for certain systems in the body, different things that we use to heal or help bring wellness to certain conditions and things like that. We optimize the body. One of the things that I teach too in my certification, not only all the semantics of this, but we do go a little bit into, as a practitioner, what we can and can't say legally and how we would run that business. So we don't say that we treat disease, we say that we promote wellness and optimize health. But through doing so, if we're doing that for a specific part of the body in a specific way, we do end up having these types of results. And it's been 24 years now I've been a medical intuitive, and I've seen it all.
Mhm.
At all. So when I do a session now, and this is how I teach it, we have a specific invocation that we use to bring in the spirit guides. It's adapted from what I learned from my medicine teacher. And we bring in the guides of not only the practitioner, but also the client. And these are only their highest vibrational guides, and everything's really calibrated for the highest good. And then from there, the way I work with it now, because people do come in with, specific bodily questions, is they can share their list and I go through it. And the way the invocation is worded is the items of greatest import can come in first. So if their guides are like, we need to tell them this and then we'll deal with their list, then we do that. But a lot of times people know what they need to look at too. So and then we go through and look at what are the root causes of these. And then sometimes people also ask about, what's going on, how should they optimize their home so it will sell, or what's going on in people's love lives. That's always a big question. Career is always a big question. The usual things we all want to know about, honestly. Relationships and the harmony of that and different things. So and I also have integrated what I call my atomic healing audios with the sessions as well. So sometimes I will make like a custom audio it's designed to influence the subatomic particles in the body, aura, and life to manifest and create the highest frequencies, specific and calibrated to what's happening in the session. And it does induce an altered state. So it's typically like a custom audio I make for the person, and they use it at home, laying down, they go into the state and they program the body that way to help solidify the healing. And I also can make it into a subliminal where we take the altering state words out and then we put the statements that we're programming behind like a subliminal. Although I don't advise people use those in the car still, because it's still relaxing music.
Yeah.
And we want to be real safe, but or when you're doing housework and stuff like that. So it's really a step-by-step process. It became the atomic healing method, which is a medical intuitive method, but it's also a method where we work with the atoms, subatomic particles in the body, as well as the compounds, the molecules, the organs, the whole being, I use a lot of traditional Chinese medicine and Taoism. That's the system that resonates for me, which is sort of ironic because I have written a lot of books on chakras, which are great, and we do use those sometimes, but organ meridians tend to be really involved in what's happening from a health perspective. So an example would be a lot of people come in with the issue of tinnitus because it's, pretty common and there's not really a ton of treatment. And there are some different causes. Certainly, non-native EMFs are a big issue that aggravates that and things like that. But this is a great example of where a lot of people are basically yin deficient, especially in the kidney meridians. And the way that they connect with the ears and all of that energetically, when we address that, we can sometimes alleviate tinnitus. We can optimize health so tinnitus might do something else, basically.
I love it. Okay, well, let's do it. You want to do a little sample session and
Sure.
on me, and like you can say whatever comes up.
You're good. You give consent.
I give consent to whatever might come up, all honest. And then after we do a little sample session, we'll have more questions for you. But I also want to talk a little bit about how people can learn how to do this themselves.
Yeah, because that's, I've been doing this for 24 years, and in the last, I don't know, less than a decade, I've had apprentices, and now I've created the certification because there's only one of me. Like I'm booked out, I think, let's think. I'm booked out like 5 months right now. I mean, there's just not enough of me to go around. So I want to make this accessible to everybody. And people who go through the training, not only do they get the opportunity to build a new career, they also can use these things for their family. And a lot of people do,
And you don't have to have any prior training to be able to do this, right?
You do
not. This is something you can totally learn in the certification.
This is a 9-month certification, and it's highly experiential. There is home play, I call it. It's not homework, it's home play. There's a little bit of required reading, but it's like not a whole book. It's parts of books, parts of certain books and things like that. And so you really get a lot of knowledge, and the graduates from last year are all starting to practice, and they're totally equipped. They all pass their final exam, which is just giving a reading in class, which you already do anyway, so it's really not that big of a deal. They all did great. I mean, and the type of session we're going to do will be just a mini session you guys will get to hear in the certification. Once you've done all the experiential pre-work, when we land, somewhere in the middle, you start practicing, and you have me and my team there while you're giving the reading. We're helping, we're sharing vision with you, we're helping you refine the technique, and then adding more knowledge. So it's fun. It's it's the work of my heart too, to train people in this method, because
I love what you said. I think if something, the way that you were kind of pulled from, which I think a lot of people can relate to nowadays, there's so many modalities available to us, and so many different, I'm going to say, like, inroads to spirituality, so to speak, right? Yes. And I think sometimes it can be confusing for people.
It is.
Of like, what is the thing that's mine, right? Yeah. What is the thing that I want to do? What is the thing that even I want to coach about, right?
Yes.
And both of us, me and Amy, can go both ways. Or we can talk like spirituality, or we talk like straight marketing business.
Totally. We both do. We both do.
With business, one of the things is that, a lot of times when you're too indistinct, right, it's hard to get that momentum, especially at the beginning. I think once you get to a certain point, you kind of like, you're able to get away with more.
You are. Totally.
But like, just like you said on your journey, where you were just naturally, your passion, your interest
Yeah.
was drawing you to the medical intuitive side of things,
Absolutely.
even though all these other things are a part of you and a part
Mhm.
of, your experience. So if you're listening to this, you clicked on this podcast or you clicked on
Yes.
this on YouTube, it's clearly because something about being a medical intuitive is spiking up in your curiosity. So let's do this mini session because I want to give
Yes.
people an idea of, because I feel like out of all these different modalities, I feel like this is one of the more mysterious ones.
I know it is.
And so I want people to just kind of see like an example of what that
Yeah.
kind of conversation would look like. And
Yeah.
then we'll talk a little bit more about how they could have
Yes.
get these
I love
insights
it.
and tools.
I love it. I love it too, because one of the things after the certification graduates were done, they get to do like a little chit chat with me and they had any questions and stuff. And some of the feedback was something along the lines of what you said. Was like, I didn't really know where to start. And what happens is in this class with such an experiential core, it gives you an ability to tap into anything you want. Herbalism, chakras, TCM, other paths of healing, just energy, moving emotions, because we try a lot of it, but you also have a tangible, relatable, consistent, reliable connection with your spirit guides to talk to them. So they tell you, and we work with your dharmic guides, like the guides about your dharma and your life's purpose. So in the course of it, we see people who are on a more plant and herbalism tract, people who are on, more of an energy healing tract, and so on and so forth. And it helps them build their careers in their zone of genius. And that's what we're looking for. So good stuff.
I
So
love it.
let's dive
I
in.
love
So
it.
I will say an opening invocation and invite in your guides. And then I'll give you an opportunity to tell me, 1 to 3 things that you might want to ask about that are going on in your body or your life. And then we'll let them give some feedback. We'll also see if they have other things they want to share. That's what we'll do. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we ask that all that transpires in the entirety of this session be for the very highest good of all life and in accordance with universal natural law, helping all and harming none. We ask whatever is for Cassandra's highest and best interest to come through easily and gently, and that we both be protected fully during this process. We welcome the presence of Cassandra's highest vibrational guides, guards, and teams, and thank them for their help. Okay. So,
Yeah.
what would you like to work on if you know?
I guess just nothing like specifically bad is going on, but
Yeah.
just like postpartum stuff.
Yeah,
So
that's kind of what I was figuring.
just dealing with my breast milk supply is like
Mm-hmm.
okay, but not abundant, I would
Yeah.
say.
Mm-hmm.
And also just like my body, like getting my body back to like feeling like releasing like any excess weight that's not serving
Yeah.
me, getting my energy levels back, my
Yeah.
mental acuity back, anything that comes up around any of
Sure.
that kind of like healing
Sure.
stuff.
And amid the less quantity of sleep than prior.
Amid the circumstances.
Yes. Totally. Awesome. Um, so I'll remind you, if typically when someone books their session, you get a form and things like that that talks about how everything is for informational purposes, and that Amy's not a doctor or a chiropractor or an acupuncturist, et cetera, et cetera. None of it is construed as business, medical, or legal advice. And it's simply for informational purposes, and you are advised to consult your health practitioner.
Love
So
that.
just like to
Keeping yourself safe as a
yes.
practitioner, it's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's more extensive, and in the course you get to talk to my attorney who helps with that and stuff like that. So yeah,
That's
gives a
super
chat.
important.
Yeah, you also get to talk with the woman who builds my systems behind the scenes, who's like amazing too. So you get a lot of good resources.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So my medical intuitive partner is Archangel Raphael, who is a guide that I think of as non-religious, non-denominational, even non-gendered, just happens to be a being who helps me with this and has for many years. Many other guides as well, but when Archangel Raphael comes in front and center like this, it means we're going to look at the body for me. And in the training, people get to find who the guide that is for them. After they're meeting guides, they're learning how to connect with guides for a while. Then they get to start seeing who's their one or more of their medical intuitive helpers that help with
That's
their sessions.
amazing. I
Isn't
love
that fun?
That's so
Yeah.
fun.
And it's also like a guide that helps you with your life. Like,
Well, it's funny because I use Archangel Raphael a lot for healing stuff as well,
I love
just for
that.
myself.
I mean, and that being is sort of known as that. He, she, they is kind of known for that. I have a client whose daughter like always sees that being, which is really fun.
That's so
And
magical.
figured out on her own to call them in for healing too. Isn't that fun?
Oh my God. I
I
love
love how
that.
kids are like that.
Kids
Yeah,
are like on a whole new level these days.
kids are on a whole new level. Okay, so Archangel Raphael, speaking of that, like many of our mamas nowadays, you have brought through quite the light being, and just there's a lot of like purple energy right now associated with the baby, and that has to do with the way that the frequency is being translated, that he or she, is this a he?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That he came, I don't even know if I knew that yet. That he came from before he incarnated this time. So Archangel Raphael is saying that purple was the right frequency for you. So this was from the beginning a co-creative collaboration, and not that it's not for others, but it was the right frequency for you to hold in your body for that period of time. And what it did was it actually upgraded some of the cellular structure in the, I'm being shown the lining of the uterus, and then it's layered, it's in the center layer area. There's some spots where now I see almost like purple crystals of light, like those were brought in by the baby, and their time release is what Archangel Raphael is saying. So right now they're in incubation because you don't need them yet, but they're going to get reconstituted. It looks like, so they're showing me your timeline, which sometimes I see it like a cosmic blueprint, and the babies, and Earth's, interestingly enough. So the three of those, everything's like the future's kind of in motion. So sometimes they change a little bit. So there's a point where it looks like some move a skosh forward, some move a skosh back, and then all three of those line up at a point approximately 3 to 3.5 years at this point. It's variable, where the first of the there's quite a few of these little purple light crystals. The first couple, they're like seeds, and then they start to sprout. So they're bringing through some frequencies, and then it brings me forward to like 11 to 13 years. I think after the baby was born, I think that's the way we're being shown it, where like there's like a garden starting to grow, and then 23 years, it's like you've got a whole new species of a garden in your body. And these are like funny. People sometimes say like light language now, it's kind of trendy. It's essentially new frequencies to Earth that the baby brought them in, seeded them for you, and as they reconstitute, they will they'll bring healing for you, but ultimately you'll be sharing them. Even in something like this where you're doing your podcast, as those are percolating and bubbling and starting to sprout, that energy is going to be transmitted through you, your voice, your presence, your countenance, and by then you're giving speaking gigs, you're writing other books. Whatever we hold that we can share from a dharmic life's purpose perspective can be and is just kind of naturally coded into the work we put out there. And that is for all of us. I mean, you and I are authors, so we get the opportunity to do that with our work, whether we know it or not. Even someone who's writing a fiction book is putting some elements of their essence.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so in your case, Archangel Raphael is saying, you come from, it's kind of a purpley blue place that you come from. These are sort of like in multi-dimensional, distant cosmic places you guys are from. You and the baby are from like slightly different ones, but they're adjacent, like cousins in soul family frequencies. I guess it's about the color, the way it's being shown. So you come from a frequency. It's your guides are calling it an emanation. You come from an emanation of frequency that is oriented to service, and so you've taken a series of incarnations, like an internship of sharing and service, and it's it's meaningful, it's gratifying for us to get to share and to serve, especially when we're in duality. So the experience of, they're using the word incubating, just for lack of a better word, like how carrying the baby, having the baby is supportive of your dharma as well.
Wow.
So you and this baby, and probably your husband, your family, everybody involved, but you and the baby really coordinated prior to incarnation of both of you to support your service, your experience. Archangel Raphael is really showing me there's other pieces energetically that didn't come in from the baby that you already brought in through your life experience, or you brought in when you came in, or you will, like sort of channel in, for lack of a better word, that you're going to be bringing some things through down the line that are probably pretty different from what you've done, like new things, different things that will feel really significant. So he's saying we have, I think probably you and I are this way, like we probably have certain books or certain things we've done that feel extra meaningful. Like training the medical intuitives for me feels like a big dharmic thing. So does like the card deck that I have coming out, because I worked on it for a long time. Like it was incubated. It's like being pregnant with that baby for 20 years, and I had 18 other babies before.
Yep.
I started that way before, So funny.
I relate to that, yes.
And 20 years ago, my guides showed me this will be published by Hay House and be all over the world. And it didn't happen, and I was so confused. And then it happened. It took, if that deal happens, let's say in 2023, that took 22 years to get that to happen. I mean, subsequently, I published all my other books. I thought, well, maybe that's just supposed to make me be an author, and it's too out there. The time was right.
It's just waiting for its timing. Yep.
Yeah, and it will be all over the world, because they have. It's so interesting too, because they showed me all the places where at that time Hay House didn't have those offices, and now they do. They're in offices. I saw them.
Yeah, it was all waiting to come together. I love that.
It just took a really long time in that case, but it was perfect. So that is the dharmic part. Do you want to ask any questions about that before we shift?
No, that feels good.
Okay, so in terms of the breast milk supply and some of the hormonal, they're going to suggest some things that could optimize your body. They're, of course, not intended to treat any medical issue or anything like that, but and you would consult your health practitioner. So they're actually showing that the plant horsetail, which has a high silicone content and is supportive for a lot of different things around mineral absorption, and like when people have certain mineral deficiency, it also does support the kidney channels, which are associated with the reproductive system. Horsetail is supportive for you. I want you to look, as far as the internal side, I'm not sure if it's ideal for baby, but what guides are showing us to have you do for now is to use the brand Celebration Herbals has an organic horsetail tea.
Oh,
So
okay.
you could use those tea bags and just put them in warm water and then it's showing me to have you place them like in the notch of the collarbone area would
Oh,
be a good spot for absorption for you. Or you could also stick them in your bra.
oh, okay.
Yeah, you might, if you're going to breastfeed the baby after, then you might wash that off just in case. And the other thing that's being recommended is interesting. It's a lot for up here. There's a form of potassium iodide
Hmm.
that is called Lugol's, Lgol''S. Somebody with the last name Lugol created this particular potassium iodide. You want the 2% solution. Some of the higher percentage solutions are a little much. If you search on Amazon US organic Lugol's iodine or iodine 2%, the Earth Harmony brand should come up. That's a brand that I've used. So that's just an option. Um, that's a potassium iodide that can be used intradermally. You can take it, but for you, you can put it on the area where the thyroid is and rub it in. And you can also utilize it on like the inside of the arms or back of the knees. Sometimes when people use certain like bioidentical hormone creams, you would be careful if you're co-sleeping with a partner. For example, you don't want to give your husband estrogen or something, unless he needs it. But everybody pretty much can benefit from the potassium iodide. What it does is it helps in the conversion of the T4 hormone that the thyroid makes into T3. It goes through a metaphorical iodine pool that helps that conversion occur. And
Oh, okay.
so sometimes the iodine can be low, but also sometimes it's the form. So that's why Lugol's helps. If people ever suffer from like PMS related headaches too, sometimes, obviously hydration, electrolytes, and a little Lugol's can also get that headache to go away.
Wow, so cool.
Yeah, so that's recommended for you. Because we don't know about it for baby, you
Yeah.
could also place it somewhere that's under your clothes if you're going to be holding the baby. And then, maybe just not in an area where you're going to be breastfeeding. So I could probably put in like your armpit or something,
Yeah.
would be a good spot. But on the thyroid area would be good. And just a few drops once a day is enough. It's just your thyroid needs a little support. Primarily, they're saying it's like a sleep deprivation thing, essentially. And so when the hormones in TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, are related to our kidney channel, which in our organ meridians, the kidney channel is the foundation, then under that is the constitution. So when our kidney meridian, whether it's the yin, the yang, the qi, the jing, there's a lot of different components, but when it's deficient or slightly deficient, we just don't have the resources necessarily. The ultimate yin activity is sleep. So your kidney yin's a little bit low. Okay, we're not surprised.
Yeah.
You're not getting
No.
much sleep. And you also just had a hormonal event in your body for many months. So of course it is. So lots of good minerals, the selenium, the copper, the iodine, the zinc, all the good minerals are essential. There's a supplement, again, not a doctor, by the brand Seeking Health, which is a great brand. Started by Dr. Ben Lynch, who wrote a fantastic book called Dirty Genes. You do have to read a chapter of that in the certification. There's a trace mineral supplement. It's capsules. It has those minerals, basically.
Okay.
You look that up. You will need to check that in terms of baby and breastfeeding. So if you have to wait till you're complete with that, that's okay. But that will help you rebuild those stores of that kidney meridian as well. And then to bring in kidney yin in a real gentle way, you can use oat straw tea So drink your oat straw tea. Raspberry leaf promotes like overall kidney chi and tonifies. Yep. And then the oat straw is yin protective, yin enhancing. Oat straw tea is also helpful for lung channel yin. And if kidney yin is lower and then lung yin is lower, that's part of what makes us vulnerable to immune events like catching colds and stuff. So if you're wanting to fortify yourself from a wellness perspective, for most people, oat straw is mild and it's great.
Yeah, it's a yummy tea. I like it actually.
Yeah. So those are great. And guides are just saying to really double down on all of that. And
Okay.
then when you are through your breastfeeding experience, then they want you to look at some of the testosterone enhancing herbs. You won't do that yet. But because of the impact on the body, we'll want to reset things. So some of that T3 from the thyroid also goes down into what are called the interstitial cells, which means in between, and your ovaries. There's certain cells in there called the Leydig cells. In there, T3, DHEA is also involved and cholesterol is involved, gets synthesized into testosterone. DHEA is also the building block for cortisol. So we want to tell our DHEA to go in the direction of testosterone, which is our fountain of youth hormone for all genders. It keeps our metabolism high. It gives us muscle tone. It gives us libido. As women, it keeps us kind of juicy and whatever, probably for men in their version too. It's all good. So post breastfeeding, you can look at the herb tribulus for that, which in my medical intuitive, non-medical, non-doctor opinion, it nudges our DHEA into testosterone as opposed to going into the cortisol, which, when we're sleep deprived, we're already deficient anyway, but if anything we're making, it's probably confused what to do with itself.
Yeah.
In the guides are saying in the interim, while you're still breastfeeding, consumption of high quality animal products that contain cholesterol, like organic grass-fed meats and at least goat dairy, would also support, because they are the ingredients for testosterone. If it were up to me, I'd probably be a fruitarian.
Yeah.
To be able to like lift weights and have muscle tone and stuff, a lot of us do require the animal protein, the amino acids that come from that, and the cholesterol. I'm sorry to say, I would it'd be a breatharian, honestly.
Yeah, me too.
Plants and herbs and flowers and fruits from the trees in my arts, and I ask them, can we take which part would you like me to take? So yeah, that's just.
But I love this. I'm so glad we did this, because I feel like sometimes it's just better to like show versus tell.
Yes.
I feel, right?
Yes.
And so like just in that like mini reading, you could see so many different levels that you access, whether it was like the more like dharmic, cosmic part of our soul's connection here, and then down to like the nitty gritty practical of like this supplement on your neck or whatnot. And so getting back to this certification, for someone that like just listened to that and was like, oh my God, like she must be like so much more knowledgeable in all of these supplements and body parts and like modalities and different things. What do you say to that person that's like, it would be my dream to be able to give a reading like that, but I don't feel like I have that like body of knowledge behind me right now?
Which is a great question. So what I would say is, with the connection to your guides in the practice and the experiential side, you can do all of that and you can add the knowledge over time, and you get a lot of it in the course. You get kind of a primer, so you have a base. I've been doing this for 24 years, and as you can probably tell, I'm kind of a science nerd, so I like that stuff. I like cellular biology. I like botany. You might like other parts, you can learn any of it. And the thing that's awesome is, as you know, when you're in the program and you're meeting your spirit guides, you're journeying with them, you're doing channeled writing with them, your classmates are giving you readings from your guides, you're getting healing the whole time. 9 months of getting healing yourself from your guides, practicing on each other. I mean, we have so many testimonials of people like, this healed during the course, this healed during the course, because just the sheer volume of time that you're spending talking to guides, learning healing, doing it on yourself, receiving it, and then you have partner homework, you have to trade, you're receiving. They're all also close friends, met like-minded friends. They still trade post-class. They're all friends and they trade sessions too. You will get steered in the right directions for you. And then you might be like, wow, I really, and I also teach you, by the way, like we journey with certain plants. So you learn, okay, this is how I can learn about a plant, even if I don't want to read like Rosemary Gladstar's Encyclopedia of Herbalism or something. I can journey with certain plants to understand their essence. That's part of it too. So you get you get my full toolbox to then find the information you need, whether it's channeled or perhaps it's in a book. Perhaps, some of the people went on to, you already read some of these books in the required reading, and just portions of them, not all of them too. But some people went on to say, okay, now that we're done the course, I'm going to read this herbalism book, or I'm going to read this book on, another facet of it. Some people focus more on the nutrition too, which is also eating plants. And, there's an herbal side to that, even through that process. And I really there's like, I think something like 30 plus downloadable resources with charts that I made for you of like, I wrote multiple best-selling books on essential oils as well. So you get all my downloaded information, all my charts on essential oils, what to use them for, how to use them. You get, my charts on what to use from a smoke cleansing perspective, like many, many, many types of herbs that you can use to smoke cleanse the body, the aura, and the home as well. It all applies. The flammable botanicals that are safe and what they do. So you get all these charts, you have tons of info, but you'll also find the parts that really light you up. You can see what lights me up.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. That's what you're going to what you're going to be drawn to for yourself is what you're going to be drawn to for others. And if you're like, well, I love essential oils, then that'll probably naturally come through with some of the remedies in your sessions as well.
Exactly.
So I feel like this course, you've said there's so much. Maybe it's just my brain, but I always think in these podcasts when like I need it for my brain, then my audience probably needs it too.
Yes.
You said it's a 9-month course. Can we kind of go in, and I know this would be like incredible spark notes, but like, okay, month 1, you're going to learn X, Y, Z. Month 2, do you like something like that so people can have an idea of like what their 9 months is going to look like?
Absolutely. So over the 9 months, you have 24 live experiential classes with me. So it's not every week. We take off all the holidays, and we take off a few weeks over like the winter holiday, especially quite a bit. We take off, Samhain, Halloween happens to fall on a Thursday night. So those live experiential courses are Thursday nights, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 24 over 9 months. So you have time off to integrate. In between that, on Wednesdays, you have 10, they're technically optional book study groups. You have 7 books that portions of them are required reading. And during the course of the various home play and things like that, you have like very easy, short, open book tests on those chapters, which is just to be like, okay, I understand this, and that, and they're open book. So all you have to do is just go through, and it helps highlight. Some people like me would just be like, I'm just going to read the book. Okay, I'm done. Some people like to discuss the book. So that's why we have our optional study groups that you can attend if you want. And you also get a replay for every single thing, because not everyone can attend all of these live. There's a few, the first class, October 24th, 2024 is a mandatory live attendance class because of what we'll do and because we all need to like meet each other. And then the last 3 classes in May or June, I don't remember exactly the dates, but those are mandatory live attendance. And if you had something and you email the team, we're going to figure it out for you. It's just because you do your exams. But beyond that, you do have access to the replays. Of course, I encourage everyone to come live because there is partner work that happens. There's, you can do it in the replay, but you try to come live. So there's that. And then each week when we have one of the 24 live experiential classes, you will also have some home play, which will be things like you did a journey with this guide or you learned this, and now do a channeled writing with this guide. Or we journeyed you traded with your partner and looked for healing for the kidney channel and the reproductive side, and now do a journey yourself. Things like that you do. And you just check it off, and you can do it whenever. Initially, I think it is intimidating to think about, okay, I got to coordinate with my partner. Usually you text or WhatsApp each other, because sometimes people are all over the world, to find a time. But they all say, wow, we love this so much. It's one of the favorite parts, because you have multiple sets. You'll have, like last time they had 4 partner groups, but they become good friends and they work on each other. So, and everything I do is guided. There's a set of guides that tell me what to teach, which day, who to put with who, everything. So that is all guided. And of course, they're all soul family and synchronistic, and they're all friends with each other too. So they continue to trade. So those experiential classes, the first like quarter or so, we're working through how you journey shamanically. You meet spirit guides, you talk to spirit guides, you learn how to do channeled writing, which I call automatic writing, and you work with guides. If somebody's done some of that before, then they'll take that to a higher level, and I give them additional prompts. And if they're brand new, then they start at the beginner level. Then everybody's up to speed, and we're jumping right into the medical intuitive part. We're working on systems. We're working on looking at the subatomic particles. We're working in the meridians. They're working on each other. They've learned how to traverse multi-dimensions. They've learned about the shamanic different layers that you journey, the way you journey. They have their power animals. They have the guides that they work with. And then they're doubling down. They're gaining more guides. Then they're learning about the body. Then they are practicing. Then they're learning about the brain. They're learning about all these different systems and how to apply everything, continuing to build and build and build on the medical intuitive side and practicing. They're learning about how to journey with spirits of plants to understand how they work in the body. I just teach you everything that I can, that I know. And I'm a very experiential teacher. I've taught shamanism for 24 years. Beginning, intermediate, advanced, expert. So people who have taken my expert shamanism classes with me for years still take this training because they know I am going to channel. Literally, I may do a channeling from a guide in class. I'm going to be channeling. I'm showing you how to connect with guides and channel their info. We do have a set curriculum, but I'm also open to what they want. So sometimes the curriculum says we're going to do Chinese 5 elements, and the guides say, no, you're taking them to the healing temple of Brigitte, and they're walking into the spiritual eternal flame, and they're burning karma off, and they're doing this. And I'm like, okay. I can do that. We focus a lot on ancestral and karmic healing because a lot of the root cause of things in people's body goes back to congenitally inherited ancestral density. So we work on that. You also meet lots of your ancestors who used to be healers. You meet past lives where you've been healers. So you integrate strengths that are also dormant in your body and being. That's amazing. Just like,
I'm like, okay, sign me up. That sounds
that's just 10%.
That sounds
It's
insane.
so much. There's neuroscience, there's programming.
And you also mentioned that they also get access to like your attorney for like the
Yeah,
legal
they do.
aspects of
Yeah,
doing this
everything.
and your system. So
Yeah.
I
They
love
get
that you
like
get
9
all this.
MP3s, like separate that are for programming yourself, like
Oh
my
my
atomic
gosh.
healing audios. I mean, they get access to my
So
membership, which is like 100 channelings. I mean, you get a lot of
that's
stuff.
incredible.
Yeah.
So,
And it's
so if
lifetime
someone's
access
curious,
too.
so if someone's curious about taking the next steps, what is the next thing for them to do after listening to this podcast?
Next thing for them to do is click on the link that Cassandra and her team post in the show notes, and if wherever else you guys are going to be posting that, perhaps emails and social, but definitely in our show notes from today is the place.
Yeah. If
And
you're
then
here, just look below this
just go
episode.
click the link for the show notes, and that will take you through and show you everything in a more, instead of us just kind of, you and I always say this, whether we're podcasting or just like talking as friends, we could talk for hours
Yeah.
and we've never
And we
run
just
out.
never stop.
We never want to stop talking. But you could see a little more concisely laid out.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you can join. You also have the option to email my team and book a discovery call if you would like. The window for those is short because I have a lot of clients, so there's only a limited number of those. So you should do that if you need to. You might just be like, hey, I already know I want to take it, and just then go for it, and you don't have to do that. But
as I always say, I feel like a lot of times with these choices is like your guides will, already like speaking
it's a
through,
hard yes
right?
because your guides are like, take it.
They're like, go do this.
Mhm.
And if you, clicked on this podcast, resonated with what went on, and there's that, that feeling that like feels like exciting and lighting you up, then investigate it and,
Yes.
read through the page.
Yes.
Sign up for a discovery call, like follow that
Yeah.
that little nudge, because the first initiation to any kind of calling is always just listening to that first calling, right?
It is.
And being like, oh wow, like maybe before listening to this episode, it wasn't like a real thing for you that you felt like you could potentially do this. And after hearing all of this and this certification that's available, you're like, oh wow, like maybe I could do this. So I encourage you to
can
follow.
do it. Anyone can do it.
I love it. I'm so excited. I'm like, dude, I mean, everyone should sign up for this. I'm going to sign up. I want to sign up for this. This is so cool. And I love that, again, it truly feels like a course that's going to be transforming you as you learn, right? In a massive way. And then you get to give that gift back to others.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Amy, for being here. As always, it's always a pleasure and a delight. And I'm just so excited for all of your students that are going to get all of your juicy goodness. This is just like, it sounds like a magical certification.
Yes.
So
I'm excited to meet the next round. That's what my teacher would call it, the next round. The next round of students. I'm excited.
Yeah. The next round of medical intuitives.
Yeah.
Well, for those of you listening, thank you for staying and tuning in with us. And like I said, all the links will be right below wherever you're watching this show. So don't hesitate, click it now and jump on that or get in a call if this is something that's really calling you. I'm so excited. And then if you need any like test subjects, call me, hit me up.
Yes, you can. You can practice.
I love it.